Hey everyone, quick warning, this will be a spoiler review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I will be discussing things that take place during the movie. If you would like a non-spoiler review, click up here, and I have one of those available. You have been warned. So I am not going to beat around the bush here. I'm going to tell you straight out, I loved this movie. I think Black Panther Wakanda Forever was phenomenal. It was so well done. The emotions that were built into this movie were amazing. So looking back at how this movie came to be, the first Black Panther movie, we saw a conflict of new King T'Challa as he's trying to figure out what it means to be king and how to juggle with tradition versus doing what he believes is right versus the idea of should they remain isolated, should they open up, and then he has this intruder to the throne. It was a conflict of King T'Challa trying to figure out how to be king. Well, Black Panther Wakanda Forever takes this to the next logical step. In this one, it's no longer a story of one person trying to figure out how to be a good king. It's the idea of a country trying to figure out how to do the right thing as a country. It juggles with the ideas of other superpowers having other ideas, trying to further their own interests, and what it means to protect yourself versus be open to the world. How much do you have to give the other countries and trust the other countries versus how much do you have to watch out for them? The whole idea in Black Panther Wakanda Forever of this extra superpower, this other country rising up, and suddenly Wakanda is not the sole major superpower in the world, but they have this other one that's just as powerful, potentially more so, that they now have to contend with. It changes the game. And the whole country of Wakanda, the leadership of Wakanda, has to decide what is in the best interest of Wakanda, but also what's in the best interest of the world. What's in the best interest of doing what's right. And that struggle of doing what's right is really tantamount to this entire movie. And I think they do a great job. Other Marvel movies, you see the conflict of a hero. They gain their powers, and they struggle with the idea of what it means to be a hero. Well, Black Panther, and now Black Panther Wakanda Forever, it goes a place that these other Marvel movies simply can't go. It dives into a country. This isn't about a hero learning to cope with their powers, learning to accept their powers. This is about leaders of a country trying to struggle with being in charge of a country, being in charge of an entire people that they have to protect. This movie goes where other movies cannot, politics. But it's not like we're watching a Senate race. It's not like we're watching politicians in a room discussing things. This is the leaders of a country struggling with trying to figure out what to do, struggling with what's right. And they do an amazing job of letting us see the conflict, helping us to realize these are not easy choices they have to make. There is no right solution here. Do they give the girl scientist, the young lady who created this device, do they give her over to this other country in order to preserve the peace and protect their own citizens? Or do they protect this innocent child from another country and put their own people at risk? It's a struggle that we see them deal with, and in the end, did they make the right choice? We'd like to think so. But there's a lot of conflict that came out because of it. And so that struggle is such a big part of this movie, and they do a great job. Now, we can't talk about this movie without bringing up the biggest storyline in its production, and really in the movie itself, the passing of Chadwick Boseman. He was an amazing Black Panther. The first Black Panther movie is one of my favorite all-time Marvel films, and in no short part because of what he brought to the character. So when he passed away, when they were setting up this movie, it changed so much. Not just for the production of this film, but the whole direction of this franchise and the direction of Marvel movies in many ways. So the question comes up is, how did they handle it in the movie? Did they handle it the right way? I think the way they handled this was very respectful. The movie opened by triggering our emotions. I'm not one that cries very often during movies. I cried multiple times throughout this film. And for the most part, it was because of how they were handling him and his passing. And the cast, the characters in this movie, handling the passing of King T'Challa. And you felt that it didn't feel like acting. In that intro scene where they're going through the funeral and where we discover that he passed, it felt like we were hearing about Chadwick Boseman's passing all over again, because it came out of nowhere for many of us. Most people didn't even know he was sick, and then all of a sudden he passed away. And in this movie, all of a sudden he's sick, and Shuri's trying to find some cure for him, and then she just gets news that it's too late, it's over. The emotions that ran through this film, it really struck home, and it felt real. And it felt like we were really mourning Chadwick Boseman. And his presence in this movie was felt. He was there in the movie, even though he wasn't physically there in the movie. They found ways to incorporate him in the direction of the other characters in trying to figure out how to live up to his influence in the short time that he was king. But also the murals that they had, the ceremonies they had for him, the reflecting back. And then at the end, that end credits scene where we're introduced to Prince T'Challa. And we find out that King T'Challa had a son that we didn't know about. Now, when the movie ended, I thought the whole movie was so beautiful. And I absolutely love end credit scenes because I love seeing what's coming next and getting excited for whatever they're introducing. This is the first time a Marvel movie ended and I did not want an end credit scene. Because the movie itself was so impactful, I felt like to lighten that mood with an end credit scene, to reference something coming later, it would have taken away from it. But then that mid-credit scene where we are introduced to Prince T'Challa, to King T'Challa's son that we were unaware of, it was a powerful metaphor for his influence. Because King T'Challa is not gone. He has left us, and that's unfortunate, but in this world, his influence lives on. And similarly, Chadwick Boseman's influence lives on through the work that he did and the influence he had on so many people. And I feel like the metaphor of him having a son to carry on his name, to carry on his legacy, it really struck home and it was powerful. I cried in the opening scene of this movie when King T'Challa passed away. And when the movie was over, I thought the tears were done. I thought I was now free of the emotional turmoil that was this movie. But that mid-credit scene where Prince T'Challa was revealed to us, I cried all over again. I thought the tears were done. I thought my eyes were dried out. But there it was. That powerful message once more. I feel like the whole movie, incorporating his influence into every step of what was happening, while still telling a coherent story in and of itself, was amazingly balanced. And I just think Ryan Coogler did an amazing job of keeping Chadwick Boseman and King T'Challa a part of this movie, even when he couldn't be physically. I feel like a big message in this film is the idea of revenge versus forgiveness. And we see that through Shuri and how she struggles with so much. She is constantly being knocked down and hurt in so many ways by the world around her. I mean, M'Baku says it very well that the world has been too hard on her for her to be considered a child. And that is true. For how much loss she had to suffer throughout this film and throughout the series in general, this was a struggle for her. And it makes sense for her to come out of that angry. And so when she is able to finally find the power to face her adversary, it makes sense that her first reaction is, I need to protect my country. Well, I can do that by getting revenge. Her first thought is, I'm going to kill my enemy. And when she meets up with Killmonger, and he is describing the situation to her and saying, you brought me here instead of your family because you and I are very alike. We both want to get revenge on our enemies. We want justice. Well, the thing is, that is the struggle. She has to balance justice versus sympathy and forgiveness. And that's the struggle we watch throughout the course of this film. And when she is fighting Namor at the end, I went into the fight thinking, okay, it's a film. Clearly they're going to have her make the right decision at the end. She's not going to kill him. But as that fight went on, I began to doubt. We watch her in that combat, and she is going all out. And then when she gets stabbed through the stomach with that spear, and it's like, wait a minute, is she going to die? But she forces herself out, blows up the device, and burns him. I honestly thought for a moment, could I be wrong? Could she actually take his life and seek revenge? Is that how this movie's going to go? Now, thankfully, she made the right choice, and these countries were able to come to a strained alliance, if that's what you'd like to call it. But man, the power of this film, that it genuinely got me wondering if she would make the right choice. And on a broader scope, the movie addresses the conflict between us versus them. The idea that whatever group you're a part of, that group is more valuable than the group you're not a part of. The idea that you should protect your own, whether that's your family versus strangers, or your race versus other races, or your country versus other countries. The question of, should you be looking to take care of yourself and take care of the people that are like you, or should you be looking to do what's right and protect everyone? Is every life valuable? That is weighed in many ways throughout the course of this film as well. We hear in other Marvel films the idea of we don't trade lives. And yet the pursuit of protecting one life has often led to the loss of many lives. And so there's that struggle there of we want to protect Riri Williams, this young lady who is innocent. We don't want to turn her over to Namor and let him kill her. But on the flip side, not doing so puts the whole country at risk. And we see a large loss of life as a result of that decision. And likewise, we see Namor. He has seen slavery. He has seen people taking advantage of people who are not part of their group. And he is hardened by it. And he is devoted to the idea that they are now the power of the world. And his civilization could rise up and overthrow the whole planet. And so the idea for him, the question for him, is not us versus them. He's made his decision. His loyalty lies with the us. It lies with his civilization over the rest. And the question he's struggling with at the beginning is, where's Wakanda? Is Wakanda close enough to the us to be incorporated in his view of the people he should be aligned with? Or are they part of the them? In his mind, everybody else is the enemy. Is Wakanda an ally or an enemy? It's difficult because he has built up the rest of the world as monsters. And in a way, that's a large part of the us versus them conflict. Is the question of, if you're not with me, are you against me? And that was prevalent throughout the course of this film, with Wakanda constantly facing backlash from the countries they're trying to help, because they're trying to help in non-war ways. These other countries view vibranium as this power source. And so they're mistrusting of Wakanda. Wakanda is setting up stations to try and help them, and they're getting pushback out of that because of that mistrust. And so the whole film juggling with the idea of helping others, but also trying to do battle with the mistrust, with hatred of varying groups. It was an emotion-filled journey. And I just think that the way they portrayed it in this film was outstanding. Now, in regards to the cinematography, it was great. I mentioned in my non-spoiler review that this film lacked, I think I said flashy or something, sparkling fight scenes. I don't remember the exact wording, but I did not mean to say that this did not have good fight scenes. But in so many other Marvel films, we have a lot of flash, a lot of dance, we have lightning crashing down. This was more personal. Now, yes, we did have Namor with his winged feet, so that suspension of disbelief there, and seeing a little bit of extravagance in the fight scenes was there. But the war was more personal. Most of the people fighting were just fighting in hand-to-hand combat. Even the two big bosses, Namor versus Shuri as Black Panther, it was a person-to-person fight. They weren't calling down lightning. They were fighting each other in direct conflict. And the fights were powerful, not because of what we watched, not because of the spectacle or the CGI. It was powerful because of the impact and because of what the outcome of that fight would mean. So the fight scenes were fantastic. But even more so than that, In the first Black Panther movie, we got introduced to a whole new world in Wakanda. And we got to experience that again. When we went down and got to see Namor's civilization underwater, it was beautiful. And the way that he was able to use the vibranium to create a light source and to give sun to this underworld civilization. The whole thing was gorgeous. And the cinematography there was so fantastic. And the score that was used in this film, every song was perfectly placed and fitting. The speed of the songs, they fit with the speed of the scenes. The message of the songs, they added emotion to what we were watching. And even more so when there was not music. In that opening Marvel logo scene, we have that in every Marvel film, and it's usually a whole bunch of Marvel characters and some dramatic music in the background, and it's just a raha, Marvel. And this time, it was all Chadwick Boseman, and it was silent. The power of that silence was deafening. The theater I went to was very loud throughout the majority of this film. I think there was a family reunion happening in the row behind us, and then someone there recognized someone in the row in front of us, and they were calling to each other. There was a lot of kids in the theater. It was a loud theater. But when we had that Marvel logo, and we saw Chadwick Boseman, Chadwick Boseman, Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther, King T'Challa, his faces were coming together, and there was no music, and there was no sound. That whole theater went silent. People around were crying, and that was the only noise you could hear. It struck a nerve with everyone in that theater. And it was not part of the film, and yet it was such an impactful part of the film. And so the way that they were able to honor Chadwick Boseman there and everywhere, the way that they were able to incorporate music or the lack of music, these extreme sounds or the lack of sounds, these stunning visuals or these down-to-earth, realistic scenes, the balance was amazing. And I cannot imagine anything they could have done to make this movie better. So in the end, I think Black Panther Wakanda Forever exceeded all of my expectations. I am thrilled to be able to go back and see this in theaters again, possibly again, and then possibly again. I don't know how many times I'm going to see this movie because it was so good that I just have to go back. So if you've already seen it, which I hope you have because I've laid out a whole bunch of spoilers here, if you've seen it, I hope you loved it half as much as I did. If you have not seen it, hopefully these spoilers don't take away from your experience because you need to see this movie. I look forward to seeing what happens with Wakanda going forward, what happens with Shuri as the new Black Panther going forward. I look forward to seeing where Ryan Coogler goes next. I have not seen enough of his movies. After what he did with Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, I have got to go find more of his movies and see more of the things he has done because, wow, that guy is brilliant. So, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more reviews of movies, more theories of these films. And as always, thanks for watching.